The first time Kayla saw him, he was laughing. Not cruelly. Not mockingly. Just laughing the way humans do when they're unburdened by pain, untethered by duty. To her, born into a world of formality and calculation, his laughter was sunlight piercing the monochrome clouds of her life. Kayla was only 12 cycles old then, equivalent to a human's 15. Barely a child by the standards of her people, the Eilari. Her body was still translucent in places, shimmering with a faint bioluminescent hue, and her mind was a swirl of curiosity and naivety. The human's name was Jonas Marek, a xenobiologist stationed on her home planet of Eilar Prime for a 5-year research grant. He lived among them, studied them, treated them not as subjects but as equals, sometimes even as friends. And Kayla, the daughter of an elder scientist, saw him more often than most. She shadowed him like a moon trailing its planet, quiet, observant, watching the way he moved, how he listened, how he knelt to examine not just flora or fauna, but the smallest signs of life that most Eilari ignored. One day, emboldened, she approached him with a question. "Why do you laugh so much?" she asked, her words slightly accented but clear. He looked at her with warmth, not mockery. "Because life is heavy. Laughter makes it float, even if just for a while." That day, Kayla fell in love with the concept of joy, and with Jonas. But he never saw her as more than a child. When she confessed her feelings near the end of his assignment, he smiled kindly, kneeling so his eyes met hers. "Come back when you're older," he said gently, not as a dismissal but a deferral, a future unopened. Then he left, and Kayla vanished from the public eye. Years passed. Eilar Prime changed. It joined the coalition of allied worlds. Humans came and went. Trade flourished. Cultures bled into one another. And Kayla became something else entirely. She pursued xenoscience just like Jonas. But not just to follow in his footsteps, she sought to surpass them. Her once translucent skin became smooth and glowing as she matured, the Eilari equivalent of adulthood. Her thoughts grew sharper, her eyes more determined. But beneath the accolades, under the titles and recognition, lived a silent promise, a return. 12 years after Jonas left, the coalition summoned him again. Not as a scientist but as a diplomat. His knowledge of Eilari customs, language, and history was unparalleled. They needed him to broker a trade agreement between the Eilari and the economically unstable Varnic Dominion. When he returned to the shining cities of Eilar Prime, Jonas was older. Lines traced his face. His eyes were wiser, tinged with a melancholy he hadn't carried before. And standing at the spaceport to greet him was a woman, tall, elegant, glowing faintly in the dusk. "Jonas Marek," she said in a voice familiar yet changed. He stared, confusion flickering into awe. "Kayla," she smiled. "You said come back when I was older." He blinked, stunned, seeing now not a child but a confident, radiant adult who had grown into her own skin and her own legacy. Jonas stumbled for words, but Kayla had none to wait for. She took him on a tour, not of cities or monuments but of her life. She showed him the laboratories where she'd published theories that revolutionized interspecies neurolinguistics. She shared the peace treaties she'd helped forge between minor worlds in the sector. And in a quiet arboretum where bioluminescent vines curled around alien trees, she sat with him. "I loved you once," she said. "And in many ways I still do. But I don't need to be that little girl again. I've grown, Jonas. Not for you, but for me." Jonas swallowed hard. "And now," Kayla looked into the stars. "Now I offer you a choice. I'm not waiting for your approval anymore. But if you'd like to walk beside me, not ahead, not behind, then maybe there's still a path. Ending. The diplomatic talks were long and grueling. The Varnik were difficult negotiators. Jonas handled the political front, Kayla the cultural nuances. Together they were unstoppable. The galaxy noticed. Two minds, one human, one Eilari, working in perfect unison. They weren't lovers. Not yet. But there was something in the way Jonas leaned toward her when she spoke, something in the way Kayla's fingers lingered on the edges of his datapad when she handed it back. One evening, after a long negotiation session, they found themselves in a garden of crystalline trees. Jonas was quiet. "You know," he said, "when you were younger, I didn't dismiss you because I didn't care. I did it because the universe is unfair. I didn't want to be the reason your heart broke before you knew how to wield it." Kayla chuckled softly. "And now?" He looked at her, gently placing a hand over hers. "Now I see that your heart could break 1,000 times and still burn brighter than most suns." They didn't kiss. Not yet. But their hands stayed together, fingers interlaced like gravity and light. Months later, the trade agreement was finalized. Peace was secured. Jonas prepared to return to Earth. But Kayla didn't let him leave. "I've followed the stars long enough," she said. "I think it's time we explore them together." And so they did. Two souls that had once drifted on different orbits, finally aligned. She was no longer the girl he had gently pushed away. And he was no longer the man who laughed without weight. They had both changed, forever. And they had chosen to change together.